Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us for Scottish AI in Schools Week. I'm Martin Coots. I'm one of the education officers with the Digital Learning and Teaching team at Education Scotland. I'm joined by my colleagues Kirsty McFall and Brian Clark, who are going to be manning the chat and the doors for people getting in and out. As part of AI Week, we have a number of teachers sharing best practice with us, and kicking us off for the first of these sharing practice sessions is Andrew Hay, Design and Technology teacher from New Battle Community High School. Andrew is going to be taking us through his experiences and how they have been using AI to support students with their learning since all the way back in 2021. And I think his aim is to share his journey and give you some ideas that will allow you to incorporate AI into your learning activities at any stage. So Andrew, I'm going to hand it over to you and let you share your journey. Thanks very much for doing this for us, and I'm really looking forward to hearing what you're going to be sharing this afternoon.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Martin. I'll just click the button and share my screen as it slowly loads. I'm Andrew, as Martin said. I'm at New Battle High School, and we've went on quite a journey using AI for quite some time. So by all means, if you want to jump in with a question, and then Kirsty or that can jump in, because I won't be watching the questions as we're going. So by all means, interrupt me. It's totally fine. I don't have a problem with that. My slides are slowly loading here. Hopefully, there we go. So I guess, like, starting off, or so everyone's on the same page, like Martin said, it's really just a chance for me to share our journey and the progress we've went through, and the hope that that'll help other schools where you can maybe skip some steps or try and catch up or get ahead, or it might give you ideas to change what you're doing yourself if you've already jumped on the bandwagon and doing some stuff with AI. And I'm going to touch on a bunch of different AI tools, some that are quite well known, some that might be less well known. So New Battle High School, just for context for everyone, we're in Midlothian, so not far from Edinburgh. We've got a school roll of just over 1,200 pupils at the moment, and it's a growing roll year on year. We're just going to we'd add up every single time. For New Battle, one of the key, the vision for New Battle as a school is that all students will be digitally literate by the time they leave. And as part of that, we are a digital centre of excellence. So since 2018, we've been a digital centre. And the focus or the rationale behind that is about us leading the way and supporting the authority by piloting and trying different digital projects that can then be rolled out and shared wider with everyone. So quite often we are trying to do lots of different projects, and there's ones that overlap. So there are projects that overlap with the AI, but that's where, for us, it's a case of we're just trying to get it so that others can learn from what we've done in our testbed community in the school and then apply it to their own settings. We had a HMIE inspection by Education Scotland just before Christmas, and one of the big comments, I guess, that's linked towards that was that staff make skillful use of digital technology for enhancing pupils' learning experiences, which I think is one of the key things that we strive to do, and it was great that it was recognised in our last inspection. So that the definitions that I'm using is clear for everybody. I'm going to be talking a lot about generative AI specifically, and I've got my definition there on the slides, but it's where we're talking about an AI that's learned based on a model, and then it's then used to create new content based on that, and it can be in different formats, whether it's images or text, but it's where it's creating it based on the inputs that are given. So anytime that I'm talking about generative AI or linking back, that's specifically what I'm meaning, because there are a few different types of AI models out there and different AI tools. So the journey since 2021 to 2024, which seems crazy that we've been using it that long, but that 2021 was the first time we used it with students. So that's where we sort of started our journey from. And how I've split up my slides is basically jumping through the years, and I'll give you examples and try and give you a wee bit of example of the impact, but also the hurdles or the challenges that we faced as we were going through till we got to this point here. So you can see it started off with like awareness, and a dip in the toe in would be a fair explanation. Then build it into improvement plans and getting a structured strategic plan to get it set up in the school. And then after that point, we looked at, okay, how can we actually roll this out and get it so that it's going to be impactful for all in a safe and secure manner. And we're at the point now where arguably it's quite well embedded in the school, which is what you'd probably expect given the timeline that we've had. So back in 2021, there was chat about different generative AIs. There wasn't a lot out at that point of options, whether you're talking about things like DALL-E. And one of the ones that caught our attention back then, and it's one that's sort of going to have a golden thread through the slides here, is Viscom. So Viscom's an American-based AI company, and back in 2021, what it could do was render images, which for any art teacher or maybe design and tech teacher, you'd be like, well, like we teach them how to do that. But the fact that you could just take a photo, press a button on the computer and get it rendered at that point seemed quite magical. With the thought being, and this is where we keep going back to for our setting anyway, is where are we using AI and what's the benefit for it compared to what the task is. And obviously if we're doing a task that's about rendering skills, we're not then going to use the AI tool. So you can see the examples on my slide here, and this is S1 pupils' drawings. We're drawing different shapes, and then they were rendering them, and then this is a little bench, and the quality of it compared to what we're used to now and used to Stable Diffusion or Midjourney, or is very limited, but it shows how much it's grown over time. So we started with that, and the setup that we used was very teacher-led, with the idea being that the pupils didn't actually have straight access to the AI models. We, as the teachers, were collating the students' work, so taking photos with the Chromebooks. Pupils would upload that to a Google Classroom assignment. We just grab all the images, put it into the AI, press the render button, and get something out. So back at the end of 2021, that's where we had groups of students and we would pull them into a room. And because at that point it was something quite new, we'd done it in we've got a room called the Carnegie Suite. It's kind of a meeting room, a formal room. And it's got a nice big board. It's got some nice comfy seats. So we used that for the pupils to sort of show, oh, look. And we had a slideshow set up with their drawing first, and then the rendered output and how it shaded in. And the rationale we were thinking at that point was this could be a really quick way to get an image and get it shaded so it stands bits out or makes bits look clearer or makes it so it's going to be more impactful for the learner to then go, look, this is my drawing, and they've not had to sit shading in a drawing or taking that extra time. So that was the start, and that's how we really dipped our toe in. Now, at that point, there wasn't a lot of concern about data in the sense of what data are you putting in. So we were putting in people's drawings, but not people details. And it was only shading in the drawing. We did look and we did make contact with Viscom at that point for how does the generative AI model work? Because some of the AI models work by it collects your data as you're putting it in, and it'll learn from the data that's getting put in. So it'll keep getting better, hypothetically, based on the data that's getting put into its model. Viscom doesn't quite work like that. It's not a model that's scanning your information and learning from that. It's done separately, and that's so that your data is secure, as opposed to a model where it's learning and then it could get a bias because it's someone using it a particular way. So we used that. The DALL-E, and the reason that's on here is that was our first realization of thinking, hold on a minute, with text image generation, you could actually get to the point where you could generate a folio or generate work pieces. And that for us as a school was a wee bit of a concern, because we thought the natural of, is that cheating? Is that the candidate's work, or is it not? But that's where we thought, right, okay, we need to have a handle on this now, because pupils are going to have access to this. And thinking of equity and obviously closing the attainment gap, we don't want any learners to be left behind because they're not aware of these tools, where someone else is making use of the tools. So we're trying to get a equity and a balance, but also an awareness and an understanding of it for all of our staff. So 2022 came around, and that's where we're like, right, how can we make this happen? So the first step that we looked at is get it formalised in the improvement plan, where before it was very much like professional inquiry level, where it was just trialling, seeing how it worked with classes, and looking at the impact of that. We then thought we'd formalise it to our improvement plan. So it went into our digital centre improvement plan, as well as the technologies faculty improvement plan, for how can we use this. Now at that point in 2022, that's when we started getting some more tools coming out, like Midjourney and Stable Diffusion, to join in with the image generation. But we also continued with Viscom. And it's where at that stage we thought, okay, how does this fit in the design process? Because naturally, for some staff, they see it, and as soon as they saw a demonstration or the use of it, they were like, well, that's it. It's, jobs are going to be lost. It's a case of we're teaching the wrong thing. We need to be teaching the basics. And there was scaremongering is maybe a strong term, but there was a little bit of concern or worry around, is this the way that we should be moving forward? So what we used is this creative thinking process of where does it make sense for the generative AI to support the work? And it's where you can see, for us thinking of going through a folio or going through any problem solving stages, it can support with inspiration, the initial step for us trying to gather some thoughts. It can support with you generating and exploring different ideas. But once it comes to refining and coming to a final solution, that's where it still needs the people to make the decision. And like I said before about like using DALL-E for a folio and just generating the whole work, yes, you could do that with AI, and you still can. But the catch for the learner is it still actually meeting the original brief that was set out that they were asked to solve. And that's where the human element comes in. So the diagram here, you can hopefully see the idea of us using it as a tool to support rather than something to take over the process. And we very carefully wanted to strike that balance. Now, we did look at the image generation. So this is purely text to image, for how can this support with the concept art stage. So our computer games development course, our S3, when they're coming up and trying to think of the level design or the character design for the game, is where we found these examples are from Stable Diffusion, and it was a horror game set with a shed in the woods, and you can see using that straight away, pupils were starting to generate a look and a feel for their game. Is where it supported the learners to then take it to the next step. Okay, so like, what's outside the shed? What's inside the shed? Why is there stuff outside the shed? Is it a dark forest? Is it raining? What's it looking like? So it opened the chance to get more into the nitty gritty of the design, as opposed to the high level, with the pupils having a visual. So we got to the stage of pupils taking these pictures, printing them out, and just annotating on top or making notes of thinking, right, okay, this is what I want to do. The catch or the limitations that we found with this is literacy. Literacy was a key thing for the text to image generations. The pupils' adjectives and verbs usage for describing something to create an image was really important. And if they weren't able to describe or put into words that well, then they wouldn't get as good an image, or they wouldn't be able to vary the image the way they wanted. So that's where we actually started thinking what we need is word banks and description words to support learners to go down with the prompt creation. And it's where, at the same sort of time in the industry, that's when you started getting jobs appearing with the title of being along the lines of someone who's writing or creating prompts, because the it takes a real skill to get a prompt that's going to feed back something that you want, as opposed to just getting something random, and getting the pupils to hone in that skill to get really specific prompts to tie in with what they've already generated as part of the work was key. So with the third years, we tried, we developed, we found the challenges or the negatives is that they see something like the images you can see here on the slides, and then they're like, cool, that's what my game's going to look like. And any computing scientists or games development teachers will know that looks great, but when you're in S3, it would be very challenging to create something that looks the same as this. So it's where there was that balance of this is concept art, it's not your actual game art, and it might look way better than what your game is actually going to look like, depending on the game engine that we're using in the class and the assets that you create. So we found that a slight challenge. And in 2022, this is when we started to find issues with access. So a lot of the image to text, the text to image generators, getting access to it is a challenge. Midjourney started and it was Discord servers. So we do have staff access to Discord in the school because they're taking part in the British Esports Championships. But we don't have pupil access to Discord, and then pupils would have to use their own Discord, and then there's the DPIA and the user details and everything like that, which opens quite a rabbit hole. Stable diffusion, originally you could get in with the single sign-on with Google back in 2022. That was before that was turned off for the security issues of details being handed over. But again, that's where it's pupils then signing up to access a different site and their details being shared. So there was a wee bit of concern of how is this getting managed, and naturally it's what images are being produced. So we done it in a very controlled manner in class, using the link that was provided so that the pupils could get on, create an image and see it, but fully supervised, because the other concern was what happens if they create an image that is inappropriate, and although a lot of the text image generators have ways to try and prevent that, there's always something that you can type in that you can get a slightly different or a crazy or a weird output from the text to image generators. So the next stage, which we continued between 2022 and 2023, is we went down the Viscom route. And Viscom, for the implementation, we committed time. We paid for a license as a school to get an educational license, and that linked us with the CEO of the company, who was things like, give us the most common words used in prompts. He sent back the 100 most common words that were used, so we could use that for our word bank. The other thing with Viscom is not just a text to image generator. So here you can see with eGIFs changing quite rapidly, excuse me, is pupil drawings done digitally, fed into Viscom. And then the reason that some of them have got multiple versions is because that's the pupil doing the iterations using the eye, being like, that's not quite what I want, I'll make a wee change, I'll render again. And you can see the story or the narrative of the design. Now, what we've found with using Viscom, which I know is quite a bold statement, but anybody that works in a creative lesson, whether you're in primary school or secondary, you'll have had a learner at some point turn around, and when you say that you want them to draw concepts, you'll get a reply of, I can't draw. And the pencil goes down and the walls go up of, that's it, I'm not engaging with this task anymore. And with Viscom, what we've found is that I can't draw just disappears from classes. It doesn't. Pupils don't say that. So you can do it with paper and drawings, and you'll notice compared to the first Viscom images in 2021, it's radically changed in those 2 years. But for a simple drawing, you can get what looks a really professional image, a bit like what you get with Stable Diffusion, DALL-E, and so on. Now, what we've done for setup and the challenges for this, again, has the single sign-on with Google, but conscious of what's it producing. Now, it does have specifically built into a few different things. It won't produce images that is categorized as inappropriate. And then the other thing it won't do is it won't copy a specific type of artist style. So it will copy an art movement, but not a particular artist themselves. So for thinking of the controversy of, are you just ripping off a famous person's art, it takes that away. But if you're wanting a design style, you can specify that, and it will allow you to do that, which we thought that shows a level of, okay, we're showing respect to who we're using, as opposed to just jumping in and using it straight away. At this stage, that we really got to the point of, okay, this can help a lot with character creation, it can help a lot with level design, and storyboarding and computer games development. For design and manufacture, it's where we started thinking, how can this support for designer? And it's where, like I said, you can take a photo of a sketch and put it in, but you can also take a photo of a model and put it in. So we've done some work with pipe cleaners, cardboard models. Take a photo, upload it, and we got some really good outputs there. We got pupils then iterating and drawing and telling a story. And the only catch we really found, sort of like for most of last year, was what was missing for the teacher is you would see the start, you would then see the end, and you wouldn't see the iterations in between. And the drawing at the top right here is maybe a good example of, you can see the young person wanted some mountains. They then thought, actually, I need some trees, so they draw in some squiggly trees, and then they figure again, and voila, they've got it all together. So you can see that story. And for us, we want to see the story of how they're getting to their final solution, as opposed to just jumping straight away and saying, well, here's my final solution, and they magically got to it. So here's some more examples that we've got of just base images. So I've not got the original sketches here. What made it really easy for us as a school to be able to go in and get the people's drawings is we got the company to set us up with dummy accounts. So it's fake email addresses that it's not a real email address, that we then have the usernames and passwords that we can share with pupils, and then it limits the access for the pupils to the account, but it also means we can get in and see all of their work. So this group of images, this was a third year computer games development class, again thinking of styles and environments for games and level environments, and you can see a real spread of different feelings that then inspired them for thinking, right, what's the story, or what's the narrative, or how is my game going to work in this scenario? The good thing, or the positive of it, like most generative AI models, every time you press render, you get something different. And all of these are based on learners' drawings. So unlike just the text to image, we found that the literacy was still there because there's still a text input using Viscom, but the drawing allowed more finesse of getting exactly what they wanted, as opposed to it just being random and not having control over it. So for the argument of, is an AI-generated piece of work the students' work, it's where our view is actually, well, yeah, it's more of the pupils' work when we can see that they've done their drawing, they've fed it in, they're using it to iterate to get to an idea. Now, at no point are we in New Battle saying, one of these images, that's a pupil's work and that's amazing graphics or amazing rendering. But if we're having a success criteria or a learning intention that's all around them coming up with a concept and coming up with a narrative, we're just using a tool to support that. And we're removing the barrier of I can't draw or I can't produce an image for the learners, so that then they can produce it and it can help them in other ways, such as creating a video game. The other thing that I thought I'd chuck in here, which is just a wee bit extra, 2023, like the academic year 22-23, was the year as well as a school that we really jumped in using Microsoft Copilot and what was Google Bard, but is now Google Gemini, and thinking about how we were using that whole school level. So in tandem with the pupil work, we were also looking at staff and leadership and workload. And it's where we've found these tools, and I know that it's not new to most people who have looked at AI already. They're amazing for creating things like multiple choice questions, worked examples, asking it to come up with an explanation for a particular age range is really good as well. So you can say, explain how the moon rotates the Earth for a 10-year-old, and I'll give you an explanation, and then you can do the same for an 8-year-old, a 7-year-old, a 6-year-old. But we found those tools for taking back into the classroom are amazing for differentiation, but also for identifying where learning gaps are post-COVID, because sometimes there's a gap and you just can't work out where it is, and they're not understanding your explanation, and it's how do you simplify it. And we found that using tools like Copilot to give different definitions and saying specific age ranges really helps to break it down for the learners to then go, all right, I now understand that one. That's the 7-year-old explanation, and then they can work their way back up to their age range. But we have used it as well for attainment reviews, and that's for writing the report, writing improvement plans, or feeding in and giving suggestions for improvement plans, and faculty reviews for writing up the report for the faculty review. And it's where, much like the model that I shared for the image creation of it's not saying the AI is doing everything. It's we know our data, we know what we're asking for. The same as if you're asking it to create a multiple choice question, you know what the question is you want. We're just using this to do it quickly or come up with the variations that then we can select appropriate ones. So that's been running in tandem with us throughout, which will tie into the next steps massively as well for us. Now, jumping back to Viscom, just at the end of 2023, and then the start of this year, Viscom added a new thing where it's called Workbench. This we found to be a wee bit of a game changer for that bit where I was talking about knowing the narrative of a design. So it's where here you can see on the left-hand side students drawing, and then the iterations and the changes that's went through and each stage. And the other thing you can see with like the life cycles, the bikes from Tron at the top one, is the bike to the right with this wee node on it here. That's a reference image, and it's where pupils can put in reference images, and then the image at the bottom has the link between the reference image and the original image. And it's where learners can jump in and tweak and change, but you can really start to see a narrative or a story of where the design has went, which is really supportive rather than jumping steps or missing things. So that we found really supportive for us working with learners, because it shows that chain of thought throughout the process, and it makes it very clear. So 2023, we were getting learners to screenshot, put it on a slide so we could see the steps really easy. Now, all we do is on the counts get them to use Workbench so the pupils can show us step to step of where we're going. Thinking of like impact, these are comments from staff that I gathered for this session today. So you can see the recurring themes of it's supporting with the initial ideas, it's supporting with the start of it, it's making pupils feel confident, and that the I can't draw statement, anybody that's taught design will know that well, but it's where genuinely, since I've used AI to support in lessons, it's just disappeared, which is weird and strange, which is good. It's a positive, but it's very odd. And it's where then in turn the engagement of learners, if anything, now what I'm having to do is tell learners, oh, stop, like, let's get back to paper. Let's, because they're going down rabbit holes, maybe good rabbit holes, but they just want to do it. They want to keep trying it. They want to play with it. So that is one negative, but it's becoming second nature for our learners to go, okay, I've got this tool, I can just jump and I can use it to support me, much the same as we use read and write in the school. So that to give you a wee bit of feel. In terms of next steps or where we're planning to go to wrap up, for the next session, 24-25, AI is going to be a focus as part of our cluster with the primary schools. We've been doing some CPD already with our cluster primaries. It's going in the school improvement plan, which will then feed into the faculty improvement plans. And this is where the Copilot, the Gemini stuff, but also the creative side to support. And it's where now we're really pushing on the CPD and the training, because we've given time up, we've given in-service time up for key teams to get skilled up, but now we want to get everyone skilled up and continue to push, because as you've seen from the images over the last few years here at New Battle, the tool's constantly changing, and it's where it's only going to continue at that rate. So we want to keep it going and try and keep ahead as much as possible. So I hope that's been helpful and useful. If anyone wants to reach out or wants more specifics, you're more than welcome to get in touch with me. That's no problem at all. There is the Daydream Believers AI stuff that's coming out, which lots of people, including me, will have contributed towards, that can hopefully support people as well. But we are going to definitely continue our journey with it and support everyone. But that's me. So thank you, everyone, for giving up your Monday after school to listen in.
Brilliant stuff, Andrew. I'm just going to stop the